The overgrown inheritance. The gate creaked open, a rusty protest against Maya's push. She stepped onto the path, immediately sinking ankle-deep in a carpet of moss and weeds. Grandmother Elena's house. It looked different than she remembered. Not the house itself, a charming Victorian with faded yellow paint and gingerbread trim. But the garden. Elena had always been so proud of her roses, her herbs, the carefully arranged riot of color. Now it was a wilderness. Vines thick as pythons choked the porch pillars. Lavender bushes sprawled across the walkway, their scent sharp and almost feral. The roses, or what was left of them, were lost in a tangle of brambles. Maya shivered, pulling her cardigan tighter. She'd expected some overgrowth, of course. Elena had been ill for a long time. But this was daunting. It felt less like a garden and more like a challenge, a test she wasn't sure she was equipped to pass. She hadn't inherited her grandmother's green thumb, only her love for a good story. Dragging her suitcase behind her, Maya navigated the treacherous path to the front door. Inside, dust motes danced in the shafts of sunlight filtering through the grimy windows. The air hung heavy with the scent of decay and forgotten potpourri. It smelled like a memory, bittersweet and fading. After unlocking and stepping inside, Maya dropped her suitcase with a thud. She spent the afternoon cleaning. As she scrubbed the kitchen counter, the garden loomed in her thoughts. She peered out the window, feeling a pang of guilt. Elena would be devastated. Determined to at least make a start, Maya pulled on her boots and ventured back outside. That's when she saw him. Next door, a man was meticulously deadheading a row of vibrant sunflowers. His garden was a stark contrast to Elena's chaos, immaculate rows of vegetables, carefully pruned fruit trees, bursts of color orchestrated with an artist's eye. He wore a faded denim shirt and a pair of well-worn gardening gloves. A straw hat shielded his face from the afternoon sun. He looked up, noticing her standing at the edge of her overgrown jungle. His eyes, a surprising shade of blue, crinkled at the corners as he offered a small, hesitant smile. "Afternoon," he said, his voice a low rumble. "You must be Elena's granddaughter." Maya nodded, suddenly self-conscious of her own stained t-shirt and haphazard ponytail. "I'm Maya." And yes, this was Elena's. "It's a bit much, isn't it?" She gestured vaguely at the riot of weeds. He chuckled softly. "It's got potential. Just needs a little coaxing." He paused, then added, "I'm Tom. I live next door. Elena and I were good friends." Maya felt a surge of hope. Tom seemed to know what he was doing, and his garden was proof. Should she ask for help? The thought was both tempting and terrifying. She was terrible at asking for things, at admitting she couldn't handle something on her own. "It looks like you have a lot of experience," Maya blurted out, instantly regretting her awkward phrasing. She could feel her cheeks flushing. "I mean, your garden is beautiful. I don't even know where to start with all of this." Tom leaned on his rake, studying her for a moment. His gaze was gentle, understanding. "Gardening's like life, Maya. One step at a time. You start with clearing the weeds." He paused, as if considering his next words. "Tell you what. Why don't you brew us some iced tea, and we can talk about it?" Maya hesitated. "Iced tea? It's a gardening tradition," Tom said with a wink. "Besides, you look like you could use a break." She smiled, relieved. This wasn't so bad. Maybe, just maybe, she could learn to tame this wilderness. And maybe, in the process, she could learn something about herself too. "Okay, iced tea it is." An offer of green thumbs. The trowel felt heavy in Maya's hand. Weeds had exploded overnight, a verdant rebellion against her half-hearted attempts at order. She glanced at Tom's neatly trimmed hedges bordering his property, a stark contrast to the riotous mess consuming Grand's garden. He was out there, as usual, meticulously deadheading roses. Swallowing her anxieties, Maya approached the low fence. Mr. Ashton, she called, her voice a little wobbly. Tom looked up, his brow furrowed momentarily before softening into a familiar, gentle expression. Maya, isn't it? Come in, come in. He clipped one last rose and held the gate open. She hesitated. I was wondering if you might have a moment. I'm really struggling with the garden. The words rushed out, tumbling over each other. A faint smile touched his lips. Struggling, are you? Gardening's like learning a new language, takes time and patience. He gestured toward a weathered bench nestled beneath an ancient apple tree. Sit down, dear. Tell me what's troubling you. Maya perched on the edge of the bench, fidgeting with the hem of her sundress. Everything, really. I don't know what half these plants are, let alone how to care for them. Gran always made it look so effortless. Tom nodded, his gaze drifting toward the rambling roses climbing over an arbor. Your grandmother had a gift, a real green thumb. She knew this garden like the back of her hand. But even the most experienced gardener faces challenges. He paused, a thoughtful look in his eyes. Tell you what, why don't we take a stroll through your garden? We can identify the plants, discuss their needs. Consider it an offer of green thumbs, if you will. A wave of relief washed over Maya. Really? Would you? I'd be delighted, Tom said, his voice genuinely warm. It's been a while since I've had a gardening companion. A shadow flickered across his face, a brief glimpse of the loneliness she suspected he carried. They walked back to her yard, the air thick with the scent of damp earth and burgeoning life. As they moved through the tangled flower beds, Tom's knowledge poured forth Latin names, specific soil requirements, the telltale signs of pests and diseases. He showed her how to properly prune a rose bush, the precise angle of the cut, the importance of removing dead leaves. He spoke of the symbiotic relationships between plants, the delicate balance of nature. Maya listened intently, scribbling notes in a small notebook she'd brought. She felt a spark of excitement, a flicker of understanding amidst the overwhelming chaos. It wasn't just about pulling weeds, it was about nurturing life, understanding its rhythms, its secrets. He pointed to a cluster of vibrant purple flowers, almost hidden beneath a sprawling vine. These are lupins. They need plenty of sunlight, well-drained soil. And watch out for aphids, they adore them. He gently cupped one of the flowers in his hand, his touch surprisingly delicate. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, they paused by a patch of overgrown herbs. We'll tackle these tomorrow, Tom said, a hint of weariness in his voice. Gardening is best done in small doses. Don't want to overwhelm yourself. Maya smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. Thank you, Mr. Ashton. I really appreciate your help. Tom, he corrected gently. Please call me Tom. He looked at her, his eyes crinkling at the corners. And you're very welcome, Maya. It's good to see this garden being loved again. Stories in the soil. The sun blazed, each weed Maya wrestled a tiny battle against the overwhelming heat radiating from the earth. Tom, however, seemed unaffected, his movements measured and calm as he tended a row of swelling tomato plants. This, Maya said, yanking at a particularly stubborn root, evokes that scene from The Secret Garden, where Mary Lennox begins to unearth her own sense of purpose. Lines deepened around Tom's eyes as he smiled. Frances Hodgson Burnett indeed. A gifted writer. You favor the classics, then? Without a doubt, Maya confessed. The library was my refuge. What about you? Any books that resonated? Tom pondered. I've always been drawn to Thoreau's naturalism. Walden, certainly, but even more so his journals. He truly spoke the earth's language. He deftly removed a plump caterpillar from a cabbage leaf and flicked it toward the compost pile. Though for pure narrative power, Kipling is unmatched. The Jungle Book was a cherished favorite of my Sarah. A fleeting sadness touched his features at the mention of his late wife. Sensing his shift in mood, Maya gently steered the conversation. Did you always envision yourself becoming a horticultural authority? Tom chuckled, a deep, resonant sound. Not always. I began as a botanist, traveling the globe in search of singular plant life. A year in the Amazon, another scaling the Himalayas. Sights beyond imagination. He indicated a patch of brilliant violet blossoms. Himalayan blue poppies. Mechanopsis betanicifolia. They can be quite demanding. They remind me of Sarah, actually exquisite but needing constant care. Maya listened, enthralled. The Amazon, the Himalayas, her own existence felt abruptly limited. She pictured him navigating verdant jungles, unearthing rare orchids, his face illuminated by scientific curiosity. So different from the quietly observant men she knew amidst the garden's embrace. Did you ever unearth anything truly extraordinary? She asked, her curiosity piqued. Tom's smile returned. Extraordinary is subjective. I once discovered a species of moss that phosphoresced. Minute, seemingly insignificant, yet to me, it was a marvel. A testament to life's tenacity. He gently firmed the soil around a newly planted bell pepper. Often, the most remarkable things are veiled in plain sight, Maya. One must simply learn to perceive them. The setting sun stretched long shadows across the verdant expanse. Maya felt a warmth bloom within her, independent of the day's lingering heat. A connection to Tom, to his understated wisdom, to their shared devotion to the earth that intertwined them. She wasn't merely tending a garden, she was nurturing something deeper. As they headed toward the house, Tom paused near the tomato plants. Your grandmother possessed a rare talent, he remarked, his gaze sweeping across the thriving vines. These tomatoes. Brandywine heirlooms. Temperamental, susceptible to disease, but the flavor unmatched. A single taste of the sun-ripened fruit, and you'll understand. Maya smiled, a surge of resolve filling her. She would care for these plants, honor her grandmother's legacy, and absorb all she could from this gentle, intricate man. The soil's untold stories were just beginning to surface. Whispers and doubts. The aroma of hazelnut coffee couldn't quite mask the undercurrent of anxiety churning in Maya's stomach. Usually, Saturday morning coffee with Chloe and Sophia was a highlight, a chance to unwind and dissect the week. Today, though, she felt like she was facing an interrogation. So Chloe began, a mischievous glint in her eyes, how's your senior citizen horticultural internship going? Sophia snorted, nearly spitting out her latte. Yeah, Maya, you've been awfully quiet about your love life lately. Is Tom teaching you the secret language of roses? Or maybe the art of pruning, other things? Maya's cheeks flushed. It's not like that. He's just teaching me about the garden. My grandmother's garden. Aha, Chloe said, drawing the word out. And how many hours a week are you dedicating to this garden exactly? Seems like every time we try to make plans, you're busy tending to Tom's estate. It's not his estate. Maya retorted, a little sharper than she intended. It's just a garden. And he knew my grandmother. He's helping me keep her memory alive. Sophia reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. Hey, we're just teasing. But seriously, Maya, don't you think it's a little unconventional? You're 19, he's old enough to be your grandfather. The laughter died down, replaced by a palpable tension. Maya stirred her coffee, the spoon clinking against the ceramic a little too loudly. I don't see it that way. He's just a friend. A really good friend. He understands things. He listens. But does he see you, Maya? Chloe asked, her voice softening. Does he see you as more than just a project? The question hung in the air, heavy and unsettling. Maya thought of Tom's stories, his quiet smile when she finally managed to coax a wilting plant back to life, the comfortable silence they shared as they worked side by side. Was it just friendship? Was she reading too much into it? Suddenly, the cozy cafe felt cold. The familiar banter of her friends sounded like a judgmental chorus. She excused herself to use the restroom, needing a moment to escape their gaze and the growing unease in her own mind. Staring at her reflection in the mirror, Maya barely recognized herself. The image looking back was a confused girl, her eyes wide with doubt. Were her friends right? Was she being naive? Was Tom just being kind, humoring a grieving granddaughter? The scent of soap filled the small room, a sterile contrast to the earthy smell of the garden she'd grown so accustomed to. She splashed cold water on her face, trying to wash away the whispers that had taken root in her mind. Maybe she was spending too much time with him. Maybe it was weird. Back at the table, she forced a smile. Okay, enough about gardens. Let's talk about something else. Chloe, how was your date with Liam? But the easy camaraderie of their usual Saturdays felt strained, tainted by the seed of doubt that had been planted. The coffee tasted bitter, and the warmth of the sun streaming through the window did little to thaw the chill that had settled deep within her. The withering garden. The persistent cough started subtly, a dry tickle in Tom's throat he dismissed as the changing weather. But it worsened, evolving into a rattling hack that left him breathless and hunched over. The fatigue followed, a heavy blanket dragging him down, until even a simple stroll to the garden seemed an insurmountable task. For days he remained inside, the curtains drawn, the rhythmic wheeze of his breathing the only sound Maya heard when she came to visit. He waved away her offers of soup and tea, muttering about needing rest. But Maya saw the worry etched on his face, deeper than the lines carved by time and weather. The garden, usually a riot of color and life, mirrored Tom's decline. The carefully pruned roses sprouted unruly thorns. The vibrant hues of the petunias faded to a listless gray. Weeds, emboldened by neglect, crept between the vegetable rows, choking the delicate seedlings. The air, once sweet with floral perfume, hung heavy with the scent of damp earth and decay. One afternoon, Maya found herself standing amidst the withering plants, a knot forming in her stomach. The vibrant tapestry Tom had woven was unraveling, and the thought of it disappearing filled her with a sense of profound loss. He had entrusted this space to her, shared his knowledge, and now it was slipping away. She remembered his patient instruction, the way he'd shown her how to pinch off the dead blooms, how to test the soil's moisture, how to identify the subtle signs of pests. She'd scribbled notes in her garden journal, more out of politeness than actual interest, but now those notes were her only guide. With a newfound resolve, Maya grabbed Tom's gardening gloves, stiff and worn from years of use. They felt enormous on her hands, a tangible reminder of the task ahead. She started with the roses, carefully clipping away the dead heads, remembering Tom's words, "A little pruning encourages new growth." The thorns pricked her fingers, drawing tiny beads of blood, but she didn't stop. Hours passed, the sun dipping low in the sky, casting long shadows across the garden. She weeded until her back ached, her fingers stained green with chlorophyll. The air, thick with the scent of overturned soil, filled her lungs. It was hard, grueling work, far removed from the romantic image of gardening she'd initially held. Yet, with each weed pulled, each stem pruned, a sense of purpose bloomed within her. As dusk settled, she surveyed her progress. It was far from perfect. The garden still bore the marks of neglect, but there was a glimmer of hope, a subtle hint of the vibrant life that once thrived here. She knew she couldn't replace Tom, but maybe, just maybe, she could keep his garden alive until he was strong enough to return. A familiar comfort. The scent of lavender clung to Maya's fingers as she snipped a few sprigs, adding them to the small basket already brimming with chamomile, mint, and a handful of cheerful yellow calendula. Tom hadn't been himself lately. The persistent drizzle hadn't helped, keeping him cooped up in the potting shed, and further dimming his already quiet demeanor. She hoped a little sunshine in a basket might lift his spirits. She found him hunched over a tray of seedlings, his brow furrowed in concentration. The shed smelled of damp earth and fertilizer, a comforting, earthy aroma that reminded her of her grandfather's workshop. He looked up, a flicker of surprise crossing his face, before settling into a tired smile. "Maya, dear. What have you got there?" "Just a little something to brighten things up," she said, offering the basket. chamomile for tea, some mint for, well, whatever you like. And calendula, just because they're happy. He took the basket, his fingers brushing hers, a fleeting, gentle touch. He inhaled deeply, closing his eyes for a moment. Thank you, Maya. That's very thoughtful. He picked up a calendula, turning it over in his calloused hands. Elizabeth loved these. Said they were like little sons. Maya's heart clenched. He spoke of his late wife so casually now, but the wistfulness in his voice was always palpable. She watched as he carefully placed the calendula in a small earthenware pot, his movements deliberate and tender. It reminded her so much of her grandfather tending to his bonsai trees, each leaf meticulously pruned, each branch coaxed into the perfect shape. There was a similar reverence, a quiet understanding of the delicate balance of life. My grandfather used to grow bonsai, she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. He had this little juniper that he'd had for, I don't know, 50 years, maybe. He'd talk to it, like it was a person. I used to think it was silly, but now, Tom chuckled softly. Plants respond to care, Maya. It's not so silly at all. He gestured to the seedlings. These little fellows need constant attention. They're fragile but full of potential. Maya leaned closer, studying the tiny sprouts. They were a vibrant green, pushing their way through the dark soil with determined optimism. Just like her, she thought. Fragile, full of potential, and needing a little sunshine and care to thrive. She watched Tom gently water the seedlings, his weathered hands steady and sure. He was so patient, so kind. And suddenly, it struck her. It wasn't just gratitude she felt for Tom, or even simple friendship. It was something deeper, something akin to the comfortable, unwavering affection she'd felt for her grandfather. He was a guide, a mentor, a steady presence in a world that often felt overwhelming. A father figure, perhaps. A wave of warmth washed over her, chasing away the lingering chill of the rainy day. It wasn't romantic, it was the quiet comfort of knowing someone cared, someone saw her potential, and someone believed in her, even when she doubted herself. And that, she realized, was a connection more precious than she could have ever imagined. Eleanor's rose. Rain lashed the windows, an implacable assault as Maya rapped on Tom's rear entrance. He opened the door, his face a landscape of fatigue she hadn't previously registered. Beckoning her inside, the air around him carried the mingled sense of burning wood and a subtle, almost ethereal floral note, emanating from his worn tweed. Dreadful downpour, he grumbled, leading her into a kitchen crowded with the artifacts of a well-lived life. No chance of tending the soil today. Perched on a stool, a twinge of guilt pricked at Maya. She'd sought his botanical wisdom, yet he seemed more in need of solace than instruction. I was hoping you might offer some guidance on, well, tackling the roses. Tom released a breath that sounded like rustling parchment. He worried a chipped mug, avoiding her gaze. Roses, they're deeply personal things. Finally, he met her eyes, an arresting cerulean against the weathered topography of his face. Remind me of someone special. A pause stretched between them, and Maya, sensing a submerged narrative, waited. My wife, Eleanor. She adored roses. One variety in particular. He drifted toward the window, watching the deluge. For our 10th year together, I planted a rose bush in her honor. A peace rose. The petals were a soft butter yellow, kissed with blush at the edges. Just like her cheeks when she was flustered. A ghost of a smile played on his lips, then faded. It thrived, year after year. She nurtured it as though it were kin. After her passing, I tried, but I haven't her gift. He indicated the sprawling garden, now a watercolor wash of muted greens and grays. Likely engulfed, strangled by weeds. I lacked the fortitude to even look. Silence descended, broken only by the percussive drumming of the rain. Maya could almost taste the bitter tang of his loss, the palpable void left by Eleanor. Where did you plant it? She ventured softly. Tom turned, surprised. Near the old oak at the garden's furthest reach. The oak is unmistakable, the garden's behemoth. As for the rose, I doubt you'll discover it. Years have passed. A newfound resolve stiffened Maya's spine. I'll find it, Tom. And I'll strive to revive it. For Eleanor. A spark, akin to hope, flickered in his gaze. That's a generous thought, Maya. Truly kind. He offered a wan smile. But temper your expectations, eh? Nature has a habit of reclaiming what was. Perhaps, Maya replied, moving toward the door. But sometimes, with a touch of care, things can blossom anew. The blooming of friendship. The afternoon sun slanted low across the unruly garden, forcing Maya to shield her eyes as she searched. Southside, hugging the brick, veiled by honeysuckle, Tom had murmured. Parting the scented curtain, alive with buzzing bees drawn to the cream and gold blossoms, she located it. Not a thriving specimen, but a scrabble of thorny, dun-colored stalks, nearly lost amongst the invading weeds. Doubt pricked at her. Could she truly coax life back into this? Grandma Elena had possessed an almost supernatural knack for gardening. Maya feared her own touch was more destructive than nurturing. She tugged on stiff, unfamiliar gloves. All right, she breathed, consulting the well-worn gardening guide she'd borrowed. Pruning shears in hand, she approached the rose, cautious. Tom had demonstrated identifying the lifeless wood brittle, easily snapped, devoid of any green hint. Snip by snip, she proceeded, flinching at each resistant crack. Thorns, sharp as needles, pricked through the leather, raising tiny beads of blood. Hours drifted by. The sun bled into the horizon, staining the sky with fiery hues. Mosquitoes buzzed an insistent chorus, but Maya remained absorbed. She cleared away the fallen debris, aerated the earth around the base, and saturated it with water, urging it to drink. Finally, she nestled mulch around the base, tucking in the dormant rose like a babe for the night. Dawn arrived, and Maya hurried to check her charge. Still dormant. No miraculous unfurling, no sudden vibrant growth. Disappointment settled, a heavy stone in her stomach. Perhaps Tom had overestimated. Perhaps this rose was beyond redemption. She turned to other neglected tasks, weeding, watering, trying to ignore the nagging sense of inadequacy. Later, while preparing a simple pasta supper, a knock echoed through the still house. It was Tom, his face a canvas of surprise and something approaching elation. Maya, he said, his voice unusually gentle. Come. You have to see. He led her back to his room, the one overlooking the neglected garden. As she crossed the threshold, a wave of fragrance enveloped her sweet, rich, unmistakably rose. Upon the windowsill, bathed in the soft glow of the lamp, perched a single, flawless bloom. A rose of the deepest crimson, its petals spiraling open in silent grandeur. Tom stood beside her, gaze fixed on the marvel. He remained silent, but Maya caught the hint of a smile playing on his lips. It was there in that instant, as the perfume of roses suffused the air, that Maya understood. It wasn't merely a rose she had resurrected. Something else was blossoming, too. A delicate, unexpected connection, forged in shared effort and the unspoken language of the earth. And she knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within, that this was only the beginning of their story. A garden party and a speech. The combined aroma of roses and lavender perfumed the air, a sweetly scented veil drawn across the afternoon. Maya smoothed the fabric of her floral dress, a hummingbird's frantic wings trapped in her chest. Her garden, usually a haven of tranquility, now felt exposed, almost theatrical. The day had arrived, Tom's garden party. The guest list was select: her parents, Aunt Sophia, Liam from the bookstore, and Mrs. Gable, the nonagenarian neighbor who credited Tom's tomatoes with her longevity. Tom, naturally, held center stage. He occupied the newly painted bench under the oak's sprawling branches, a book open in his lap, though Maya doubted he absorbed a word. He projected serenity. A faint smile graced his lips as he tracked the erratic dance of butterflies among the blossoms. Everything is exquisite, Maya, and Sophia commented, offering a glass of lemonade. Your grandmother would be so thrilled. Maya offered a wan smile. I hope so. The gathering progressed at a languid pace. Subdued conversation hummed through the air, punctuated by the delicate chime of crystal and the droning chorus of bees. Liam, surprisingly, was deep in discussion with Mrs. Gable about the relative merits of peat moss versus perlite. Maya's parents appeared genuinely heartened by Tom's improved health. As the sun began its descent, stretching long, attenuated shadows across the manicured lawn, Maya tapped her spoon against her glass. The gentle sound coaxed attention. Thank you all for being here, she began, her voice betraying a slight tremor. This gathering is for Tom. For simply being himself. A blush warmed her face. He's been an exceptional friend, and I wanted to acknowledge his recovery. She indicated him with a gesture. Tom? He unfolded himself from the bench, placing his book aside. His gaze swept across the small assembly, radiating genuine warmth. I'm no orator, he started, his voice a touch gravelly. However, I feel compelled to speak. After my wife's passing, this garden, and life itself, became a tangle of weeds, suffocated by grief. I was blind to its inherent beauty. He paused, his eyes finding Maya's. Then Maya appeared. More than merely offering help in the garden, she extended kindness, a companionship I never imagined I'd rediscover. She reignited the light. She reminded me that even after the most bitter cold, spring inevitably returns. His smile deepened, a beacon in his eyes. Thank you, Maya. For everything. An emotional tide surged within Maya. It wasn't romantic love, she understood. It was deeper, more complex. The fierce loyalty of a sibling, the profound respect of a mentee, the easy comfort of family. He had integrated into her life, becoming an essential thread in its tapestry. As the applause subsided, Maya experienced a profound sense of thankfulness. Thankfulness for Tom, for his friendship, for the unanticipated flourishing of their bond. And thankfulness for the garden, the genesis of it all. It transcended being merely a garden, it was a sanctuary, a living testament to the enduring strength of kindness and human connection.